Good day, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you to the webinar on the GIIS Healthline. GIIS has always been particular about the safety of our students. Physical safety is demonstrated through our security systems, our preparedness for pandemics like COVID, and our personal care extended in all campuses. We also have a strong shield for emotional health of our students, which is extended through student counselors who are available to solve any issues students may face, like for instance, struggle with academic demands, or issues at home, or in the school, trouble with peers. Through this webinar, we are announcing the official launch of the GIIS Healthline, an online platform which will be accessible to parents and students to lend a helping hand to the young minds without any questions or prejudice. This Healthline emphasizes confidentiality and works on the principles of an open door policy where any student can walk in without any hesitation or fear of repercussion and judgment. I am Melissa Maria, Principal of the GIIS Smart Campus, Singapore. I will be your host and moderator for the session. I have 4 panelists who will join me on this webinar today. Let me begin by sharing a little bit about me, followed by introducing our panelists to you. I am the principal at the Smart Campus, Singapore, but more so an educator with vast experience of working with children in the age group of 2.5 to 18 years. I have a master's degree in humanities as well as a bachelor's, major and honors in psychology with a certificate in counseling. Over the years, my qualifications as well as experience of working with children has sensitized me deeply to understand the fundamental and developmental needs of children, as well as respect their uniqueness. Empathy and kindness have become critical in my approach towards children. It is my pleasure to introduce the well-qualified and experienced panelists for this afternoon's webinar. Let me begin with Seth Howerton. He has a Master's of Science in Teacher Education and Assistive Technology. He is licensed by the state of Tennessee as a technology specialist and holds licenses for both K-12 modified and comprehensive special education. He has extensive experience with promoting emotional self-regulation through cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. Seth's research interests include accessibility, self-regulation, communication disorders, and UI design. Seth is the SANE facilitator at our GIIS campus in Tokyo. I now go to Mohammad Salim Malik. He has a master's in social work, courses in CBT and hypnotherapy. He has worked with organizations such as the Indian Council of Medical Research, International Union Against Tuberculosis and Lung Diseases, Global Fund and Conciliation Resources London. He has been working in Dubai as Head of Inclusion for the last 4 years and has joined GIIS Dubai in October 2019. Hello, Salim. I now move to Sabahat Fatima. Sabahat has completed her master's in applied psychology with a specialization in counseling. She has worked in both clinical as well as school settings. She has successfully researched into the field of educational psychology, focusing on academic confidence and learning environment. She is a member of the Singapore Association of Counseling. She is further exploring how positive psychology can and shape benefit young minds. She is the behavior counselor at the GIIS Smart Campus, Singapore. Hello, Sabahat. I now come to Rabi Shalini. She has a bachelor's in psychology and she's master's in counseling. She has 6 years experience and is deeply committed to working closely with students and providing social and emotional support to them. She has worked in hospitals, daycare centers, government schools, old age homes, and at the International Justice Mission. She is deeply interested in cognitive therapy, rational emotive behavioral therapy, and play therapy. Hello, Shalini. Ladies and gentlemen on the panel, it is indeed a delight to host you for this webinar. Before we begin, here are some house rules for all our listeners and audience. Parents and guests who have specific questions with relation to the webinar content, you may add them in the question and answer section of the Zoom app. Our online panelists will answer as many questions live as possible. We also humbly request parents to listen to the entire webinar before posting their questions in the Q&A section, as most of the queries would have already been addressed in the webinar. We will be happy to answer any questions arising at the end. Parents will remain on mute during the webinar. Before we begin the webinar, I would like to share with all our GIIS parents a very new initiative undertaken by the GIIS schools worldwide. Today, we are launching a new platform for all our students. It is the GIIS Healthline, which is a completely confidential platform that can be accessed by all our students through a WhatsApp number. All those students who feel overwhelmed or troubled for whatever reason and would need an unbiased and professional listener to reach out to them can access this platform. We have on this platform qualified and trained counselors who will be the first responders to students in need of help. They will lend a helping hand without any judgment or questions asked. All the student will need to do is send a message via the WhatsApp number, share a few details of themselves, and then state their concern. Our counselors will reach out to them with various options to address their discomfort. We strongly believe that this would be a great source of enabling well-being among our students. And dear listeners, more details of this would be shared with the parent community via mails from your respective campuses. And now to our webinar. May I now invite our first panelist, Ms. Shabahat Fatima, to share with the parent community a few pertinent points on behavior counseling and the process followed in our GIIS campuses.
A very warm welcome to everyone present here today. I am Sabahat Fatima, the counselor at GIIS Singapore. Today I'm here to present to you a quick overview of counseling at GIIS. Also to speak about the various mental health concerns your child may face, what are the signs of this, and ultimately how we as counselors can help. The first question I would like to address is, what is school counseling? Counseling is basically designed in such a manner that we facilitate student achievement. We aim not only to improve behavior, but also to help students develop socially and emotionally. We as counselors, we act as advocates for students' well-being. It's a valuable resource for their educational advancement. Now, what do? We help them process their problems, plan their goals, and ultimately develop strategies to achieve these goals. Now, what does GIIS say about counseling? I take great pride in sharing that we have 2 excellent policies. The first policy is the no questions asked policy. This basically states that your child is free to come and talk to us about any concern they may have. No problem is too small to talk about. If they have a concern, if they have a problem, then we as counselors are here to help them. The second policy, which is the open door policy, was basically put in place to give students the freedom to approach for help at any time during the school hours. Now, with this launch of this excellent mental health line, we are available at any time of the day. Now that I've addressed what does GIIS say about counseling, I would like to proceed to the next question. What are the mental health problems my child may face? Now, with this whole student life, with this journey of school, there may come across many problems. The first problem that I would like to address is anxiety. It's one of the most common problems that students experience. It could be anxiety over their surroundings, anxiety over their academics, their exams, their future, their friends, so on and so forth. Anxiety is basically an umbrella term for their fears of apprehension, worry, concern over the future. Now, what happens is when they're going through all this, it leads them to feel distressed. They may start to withdraw themselves, become isolated. They may stop communicating with everyone. What we see when this happens is that they have reoccurring unpleasant and sad thoughts. Now, we need to watch out. Are they going and diverging into thoughts of self-harm? And is it affecting their lifestyle, such as problems related to the eating pattern, to their sleeping pattern, and so on and so forth? Though I've listed to you these problems, these might not be the only problems the child may face. There may be other problems that the child faces. Now, how can we identify whether our child is experiencing a mental health problem is another question that I would love to address. What are the telltale signs? I'm sure you as parents have already picked up on many of these. The first thing that I've noticed that when students are experiencing some mental health concerns is that they start making statements such as, I'm worthless, I'm not good at anything, I'm not going to achieve anything. So that's really a demarcation that this child is struggling mentally. They also start feeling anxious or worried most of the time. They start fidgeting, they're pacing around. You can notice this behavior before the exams. Now, like we've discussed in the previous slide, they also have problems related to their sleep, related to their weight or appetite changes. You can see these changes in the lifestyle. Now, what happens is that because of these overwhelming thoughts, these bombarding thoughts, they become extremely quiet or withdrawn, or they can have an opposite reaction, such as having an emotional outburst. An emotional outburst is like, suppose you're having a conversation with your child, and then all of a sudden you tell the child to do something, and the child suddenly starts saying, oh, I can't do this, it's too overwhelming, and they have this abnormal sort of an emotional outburst. That is a very big telltale sign. You as parents are an expert in your child's behavior. You know what behavior is normal for the child and what behavior is out of the ordinary. So then when you notice that the child is behaving out of the ordinary, it could be a sign that your child is in distress. Also, the most obvious of them all is showing signs of unhappiness, crying often, and all these things. These are the signs that a child is in distress. The next question is, what do we as counselors do? How do we help the child? We've understood what the mental health problems the child may face. We've understood what the signs are. Now, where do we step in? Where do we as counselors come in? Now, let me walk you through the various things that a counselor can do. Our first step is always to make them reprocess their thoughts in a more positive manner. We use therapeutic techniques in order to address their problems. What we focus on mainly is creating a self-image, a positive self-image, instead of having thoughts such as like, I can't do this, I can't do it, I'm not good at anything. What we want to do is shift that negative thought process to a more positive one and focus on their strengths. Now, I'm sure that when you've spoken to your child and you see that your child is experiencing a problem, you see that they've developed a sort of a tunnel image, tunnel vision. They don't want to think of the options. They feel like there's no solution. I'm going to be stuck in this problem forever. What we do is we don't tell a child that, oh, these are your options. Instead, we foster them to think of their options. When they're forced or when they're like in an environment where they have to think of their options, it creates self-awareness. Now, self-awareness, an environment of developing self-awareness, helps them identify their problematic thought patterns, what their strengths are, and ultimately they're able to develop goals. They're able to develop what they want and what are the strategies. Now, if you can see in this image here, ultimately, the thing that we achieve through this all is emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is when a child becomes aware of his emotions, how to use their emotions, and this has become a way that they develop their emotional intelligence. Now that we've understood that a counselor can help a child develop overall, how can you contact the school counselor? Now, there's various methods in which your child, as well as you as a parent, may contact the school counselor. First is always through the class teacher, the coordinator. The second, you can write us an email or directly the student can set up an appointment. And the newest launch that we are here for today, the Healthline. The Healthline is a platform where they can just write in at any time they feel overwhelmed or they feel like they cannot handle something emotionally. This is the most important question that I get asked every time I sit for a session. Will my child's concern be shared with others? Will this be confidential? Will other teachers get to know? Well, I would like to say that the counseling department at GIIS prides itself in maintaining and strictly following the confidential policy, which states that whatever the child shares with the counselor will not be shared with others unless he or she gives us permission to do so. Now, what we need to note here that if the child is at risk at harming himself or harming others, then we do bring in the concerned authorities. Otherwise, the struggles that the child is facing, I repeat, the struggles that the child is facing will not be made public knowledge. I hope through my presentation you have been able to understand an overview of counseling, and your child is always free to reach out to us as counselors because our ultimate goal is to make this learning experience a wonderful one. Thank you. I would like to now pass on to Melissa ma'am to discuss further.
Thank you, Sabahat, for that comprehensive process that we follow at GIIS. Panelists, we have parents on this webinar who will still further like to tap on the wisdom that each of you bring. And so we do have a few questions that we would address to you so that you can share and reiterate. Even if it is said already, we'll have our panelists talk about it again. So maybe I'll put the first question to Seth. Seth, would you like to tell our listeners, how would a parent know if his or her child is struggling with any mental health problem? And how do counselors help with that?
Yes, Melissa, ma'am, thank you. And good afternoon, parents. I think our children are often what we call unreliable reporters. That is to say, they don't always tell us the problems they face, the feelings they have, and oftentimes when we ask, how was your day? What happened at school? We may not get a very detailed answer. So for parents, it's important to remember that behavior is the visual manifestation of our emotions. We behave in certain ways because we feel certain ways. Now, these behaviors could be subtle, they could be hard to see, but it's nearly impossible to completely separate what is going on in our minds and how that manifests in our bodies. So parents, you are experts on your child's behavior. You understand their personalities, quirks, likes, dislikes, joys, and frustrations. And part of your job as parents is to be observers, making note of anything unexpected in your child's behavior. This is the key word here, and this is where we as counselors step in. Once behavior becomes out of character and unexpected, that's often when the emotional issues start to surface, and we as counselors will step in. Now, of course, sometimes students don't understand why they behave the way they do. Perhaps if you ask what's wrong, they really don't understand what's wrong, what feelings are causing the behaviors that are happening. But that's our job as counselors. And we use many different strategies, cognitive behavioral therapy, others, to build this emotional and behavioral connection. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth, for that comprehensive response. There's another one that we'd like to focus on, and I'll invite Shalini then to respond to this question. Shalini, what are the methods employed by the school counselor to deal with anxieties, concerns that our children face?
Good morning, good afternoon to all the parents who are present, and thank you, ma'am, for the question. And as you know, there's a high rate of mental health conditions amongst children, and children are, vulnerable to stress and anxiety and nervousness, worries, and various pre-existing mental health. And but each student is unique. The way they, respond to situations and the way they connect with the responses to the situations. And anxiety or other emotions are a response to the things which are uncertain and unclear to students. And anxiety, stress, fear are the factors that are designed to keep us safe sometimes. As a counselor, we give much attention to it as it can show up in a lot of ways. This could be one of the challenges that students face. Symptoms like feeling nervous and restlessness, increase in heart rate, and sweating, trembling, and poor concentration in studies. And as a counselor, I have seen increase in anxiety in classrooms, in exam times, or presentation times, or competition times, or a teacher is asked a question, and they stand up in front of the classmates and they have to answer for that. In certain situations, they experience kind of trauma. It can influence classroom performances to become very low. At GIS, every day morning we spend time in meditation. We conduct classes related to life skills. And as a counselor, what I feel is that children need attention and affection. They need somebody to hear them, and unconditional love and affection. That's what they need at the situation. That's what we do in schools, be it counselors or special educators or class teachers or principals or coordinators. And the methods what we follow in school is that the goal of counseling is not to eliminate anxiety or any other emotions, but to help a child manage and deal with it, and helping them to express their positivity, feelings, but realistic expectations. Talking openly about anxiety and how do they feel about being anxious of all the times, how do they experience the emotions, and foremost important is respecting children's feelings, the not being judgmental, not criticizing them, and not, but at the same time not empowering them, with their feelings. And we do not reinforce child's fear, but encouraging the child to tolerate the emotions what they feel and to deal with them. And at GIS, we help them to moderate healthy ways of handling anxiety and other emotions. And we encourage students to, positive self-talk, and writing a journal about their feelings. And within 4 to 6 sessions, you could see a drastic change in the emotions. That's the methods what we follow in school. Thank you.
Really, really good, Shalini. I think I really like that line, not eliminate anxiety, but
Yes.
help children to deal with that. I think that's
Yes.
very, very powerful. Let me
Thank
go
you.
to the next question, and I invite Salim Malik to help address this. How can parents and teachers support their child emotionally and help them develop a good self-esteem?
Yes, thank you. Well, the question you asked actually it has two aspects: role of a teacher and parents in emotional development and building self-esteem. Well, I would like to say that self-esteem and emotional intelligence are interrelated. And let me begin by making a slight distinction between kids with low self-esteem and good self-esteem. You see, kids with good self-esteem, they feel proud of what they can do. They see the good things about themselves. They believe in themselves, even when they don't do well at first. While as kids who have low self esteem are self critical and hard on themselves. They feel they are not good as other kids. They think of the times they fail rather than when they succeed, and they lack confidence and they doubt that they can do things well. We must be aware of the fact that many of our children's emotions can be overlooked. Parents might be busy juggling careers or in other family commitments, and often uh, we notice only children's behavior rather than their feelings. As parents, we can measure many aspects of our child's health, for example, which are quantifiable, like how much our children, how much our child weighs, how many portions of fruit and vegetables they eat. But a child's mental well-being, their ability to function in a society, to be able to handle their feelings and cope up with the demands life throws at them, is much harder to quantify. So taking care of your child's mental health sometimes can seem daunting, but there are few steps which parents can follow, and it will help create an environment where they will feel more comfortable discussing their emotions from a young age. So these are some steps which parents can follow. For example, number one, to be open with their children. Uh, what I mean by being open is that having a transparent communication. It's a tool which will help in the development of a child, to help them in making their beliefs strong and solid. And the key is to be honest and open with the child and explain whatever decisions the parents make, and uh, whatever requests the parents have, to explain it to them, to be honest with them. And this will in turn help the children to be help them to be open with the parents also. Second thing which I would like to say is that to show affection. Some parents parents have this worry that if they are overly affectionate with their children, it might cause the children to be too needy. But it's actually the other way around. It helps children to feel safe, and it can boost self-esteem. Also, one of the most important things is to give children your time. Our children are unlikely to discuss their emotions, if they don't seem in if we seem disinterested, if we don't feel like we don't have time for them. So it's important to set aside time where your child gets undivided attention, our undivided attention. Sit down, play with them, or do some activities together. Ask them how their day was. So it will help them in uh, you know unyielding their emotions. And also, one of the important things is that never downplay their feelings. We have seen that young children, they often show tantrums, whereas teenagers, they can be moody. But if we dismiss all their outbursts or silences as just being a phase, or oftentimes parents say it's just a phase, it will pass. It could mean that we don't it will cause it will lead to not identifying the underlying issues. So we have to be sensitive to our children's behavior. If they are unusually quiet, withdrawn, or acting up in school, there could be deeper reasons. Also, one of the uh, most important things is to monitor and ease off our children from the devices. Now, I would like to say, like, since this pandemic started, we have been dependent on the devices. Like, they have been our only medium of education. But at the same time, it's important to monitor our children and to keep and to regulate the use of devices. And one of the important things I would like to share is to meditate together with our children. Oftentimes uh, we hear about meditation and we think it's only good for adults, but no, it's not the case. We can sit with our whole family and have a time together and take some time to meditate together. It will really help our children to feel calm and relaxed. And Let me come to the role of teachers. The role of teachers can be similar as I explained the role of parents. And the important things which teachers have to focus on in a classroom is to create trusting relationships. When when a student will be able to have a trusting relationship with a teacher, then he or she will be comfortable in sharing their feelings. So it can happen when teacher creates an environment of trusting relationships, showing warmth and affection consistently, and also respecting and caring every child, and so that no child feels left out. And it is important to teach social and emotional skills intentionally. And we all know that students and children, they learn by modeling behavior. If you keep telling them something but you don't show that in person, they are not likely to follow that. So it's important for parents and teachers as well to model that appropriate behavior themselves. That is the important aspect we have to take care of as parents and as teachers. Thank you.
Salim, thank you. Those were real nuggets. 6 great points that you made for parents. You also spoke about trusting relationship and modeling. Really, really important points. I'll go to another aspect, which is on bodily changes that are happening. So, Sabahat, would you be able to share with us how parents and counselors support children emotionally through these various changes during puberty?
Thank you, Melissa, ma'am, for that question. That's an excellent question. As we all know, puberty is a time of various physiological changes, but what sometimes gets overlooked is the emotional changes that occur during puberty. Now, the first thing I think that we as parents and counselors can do to step in is to validate the students' feelings. We need to, like Mr. Salim also said, we need to make sure that we listen to their feelings, we hear them out, we understand what they're feeling, and then proceed to deal with it accordingly. I think we can refrain from making statements such as, it's no big deal, oh, you'll get over it, oh, this is just a phase. We should avoid making these statements. Instead, if we allow the child to express their emotions, then this is a very excellent life skill that also gets developed. Also, I feel like we need to reassure the child, and I've seen that this has helped greatly. We need to reassure the child that what they're experiencing is okay and they're not alone. We are here to assist them at every step of the way. So giving them emotional support, providing them with a listening ear goes a long way. Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Sabahat. I think reassuring, children all along the way is an absolute yes, yes from all of us. Seth, I'll invite you to answer the next question. Some of our children, they get extremely anxious before exams, hence they don't perform well. Do you think this could be a reason for other psychological problems that they display? And how do you think we can address the root cause here?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. Exam anxiety can often act as an amplifier and make difficult situations even more difficult. It can cause us to act and react in ways that maybe are out of character, or again, that term unexpected. Especially school and exam anxiety, in particular, can make students feel overwhelming anxiety about what does my future hold? What will the outcome of this exam be? What's going to happen to my life? So one of the most important skills we can use when faced with this kind of overwhelming anxiety is called resilience. Now, by this, I mean the ability for us to thrive and overcome in difficult and pressing situations. Just like working out our muscles in the gym, we have to work out our resilience skills. We have to practice them actively for them to get better. So we need to help students, both as counselors and parents, to build a habit of reflecting on difficult situations that they have overcome in the past, visualizing realistic outcomes of difficult situations, and then focusing on concrete steps that we can do either individually or together as parents and teachers to influence these outcomes.
Yes, Seth, once again, I agree with all the points that you've made. You've made very critical 3 points where you're getting them to reflect, visualize, and then focus on a concrete action. Thank you so much for that response. I have one more question that parents are keenly interested in knowing. And Shalini, if I can actually invite you to help us address this. Many young students may want to know, how do our counselors provide that safe environment for our children at school? What do they do?
Thank you, ma'am, for the question. And as you all know, that at most important when it comes to children at GIS is a safe environment, and is on top of every other list. Safety, and we make sure that the counseling at GIS provides your little ones with a safe environment and where they can explore their difficulties through child-friendly and holistic approach. And we can help them to enable self-expressions or identifying roots of behaviors, modifying them. When a child meets a counselor, the conversation will be kept confidential, unless if a child is at risk of being harmful or at a critical stage or having suicidal tendencies, we only then share with parents along with principals. And no matter what the problems are, they need to think the counselor as someone who's on their side every time. And we also have a bully box kept in all corners of the schools, and the students can write their whatever the issues they're facing in the school or anywhere else, and then we deal it with a very sensitive way. We go to each classes and we share about the thoughts and don'ts and do's of all the scenarios. Or if the critical chances are there, we call them personally and we speak about it. And as a counselor, that we assure all the parents over there that counseling room is a welcoming and a comfortable place with no distractions, and a place where privacy and confidentiality is maintained. And the counseling room is a place where children can relax and be confident and be safe at the same time. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shalini. That's a reassuring answer for parents. And this has really been an interactive and informative discussion. And I hope we are able to resolve many queries among parents. But nevertheless, I can see many questions pouring in from the audience. So we'll now just begin with responding to some of the pertinent questions. Let me start with the first one that has come in from our parent. Parent is Sumita. And she says, how will this Healthline operate? Is this a 24/7 Healthline, and how will we be able to avail of it? Sabahat, do you think you would be able to take this question?
Sure. So with this Healthline, our main goal was to not keep time as a constraint of when children are feeling overwhelmed, because there's not a time when a child will feel overwhelmed. It can happen anytime during the day. So yes, this is a 24-hour Healthline, but we would request that at least a 2-hour time be given, or accordingly. We as counselors are doing our best to reply immediately, especially if it's a critical concern. We do our best to reply immediately. Even if there's some delay in time, we will do our best to reply. So yes, it will be a 24-hour Healthline number.
Thank you, Sabahat. There's another question that we have, and though Malik did touch on it, Salim Malik did touch on it, maybe we'll have a response again to this. How does parenting styles, techniques contribute to strong mental health of their ward? Do parents need to be mindful of their own behavior around children? Will the counseling be there for parents as well? Salim, would you like to take this question?
Yes, of course. As I said, the most important thing through which children or humans actually learn behavior is by modeling. And especially for children, they see their teachers and they see their parents and they model behavior. And yes, I would like to say that this counseling, the platform which we are launching, it will be for the parents as well. Parents can have concerns as well, because it is seen that when a parent encounters their children facing any difficulty related to behavior or any other thing, so it definitely has an effect on the parents also. And we need to know, as parents and as teachers as well, we need to know how to handle it professionally. So that's why we are here. So parents would of course be a part of this platform, and they can always get back to us in learning how to deal with it, what kind of strategies to use, what they will be getting inputs from us. So yes, this platform is equally for the children and the parents as well. And the first part of the question, like how does parenting style techniques contribute to strong mental health? I would say that it is as if you see the conversations from all the counselors today, like Sabahat, Seth, and Rabi, all of us mentioned some common points like listening to our children, not like we don't have to shun away their feelings in by saying that it's just a phase. So all this contributes to parenting style. So as I said, one of the important thing is to maintain a trusting relationship. And how we will do that? We will do that by being honest and open to our children. So yes, of course, parenting style, that kind of parenting style has a very positive effect on the behavior of our children. And even if when there is some problem with a child, they will be open to talk to us. That is the most important things. We are humans, we will have emotional, social, psychological problems, but the important thing is, as Seth said, one of the most important thing we have is resilience. So we'll be able to build that resilience when we are open to communicate about those problems, when we are not shy, when we don't have any fear, especially with our parents and teachers. So that will come from that kind of a parenting style which encourages children to speak. So of course it has a positive effect. Positive parenting style will have a positive effect on children's behavior. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Salim. To all our audience, we have close to 600 people listening in to us through this platform as well, Facebook Live, as well as YouTube. So there is a question that has come from parent Ashish Lamore and Jemon Joseph, both from GIIS Surat. They have a very pertinent question to ask, and maybe I'll invite Seth to respond to it. The question is, how do outside issues affect a child's mental health? Right now, we are going through COVID-19 pandemic, which means the child's routine is confined to doing only certain things day in and day out. Does this or such external factors and lack of socializing adversely affect a child's mental health? Will it affect their studies too?
Yes, ma'am. I think that all of us, not just children, are seeing some anxiety and stress as part of this COVID crisis. I think especially for children, seeing the world they grew up in suddenly change and the adults try to adjust and make changes as see fit is naturally an anxious and an anxiety causing and stressful thing to see. One thing, again, we worked on, we've mentioned resilience many times today, the ability to thrive and overcome in difficult or stressful situations. And this is a skill that you build. Right now, with the COVID pandemic, I think students who have a similar routine from day to day, I think there's a sense of comfort and control in that says, the world may be a chaotic place, but I am in control of what's happening in my day-to-day life. That also promotes independence in children, and again, can reduce some anxiety. I think that all of the global campuses have done wonderful implementing the virtual classrooms. So I think their studies are blossoming. And I think that students who do have anxiety or concerns that affect their studies, that's what we're here for. And we can give them more strategies to address some anxiety about the COVID crisis and to build those resilient skills. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Seth. I have a question from parent Aviraj Khanna, and he asks, when is the right time to intervene when a child shows signs of anxious behavior? How to distinguish between normal anxiety and anxiety that needs higher degree of intervention? Shalini, do you think you would be able to take this question? Shalini?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What we encourage parents is that, when they observe intense feelings, of anxiety, uh, uh, anxious, so children express stress in a different way. Now, children are very smart and positive. They can tell if something is different or changed in the way they behave. If a parent is seeing intense feeling of anxious or for certain things like they're not able to connect with people or withdrawn from people or not able to sleep, and their appetite is become very low and sleeping pattern has changed, so they worry a lot about the situations. So when they think, the anxious is very normal to all of us. When the things, when they see the things have been subsequently changing every day, parents have to step in and deal with it.
Uh, I have parent Sunil Pandita who's asking, will there be routine counseling sessions taking place for students in school so that children are aware of this helpline? How will the school ensure that students know helpline is available? Sabahat, would you like to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. Our main goal with this Healthline is to make sure that every voice is heard. So, as an initiative, we will be contacting and speaking to every child. We are displaying it across campuses on various holdings and through slideshows and slide presentations that this Healthline is available. At the same time, we are reinforcing it in classrooms as well. Even as teachers, if they feel like a child is going through um, say an emotional problem, then the teacher will also encourage the child to write into this Healthline. And so this way, through word of mouth, through various displays that are displayed across the school, through conversations by the school counselor, and through this reinforcement of this information, all students ultimately will be aware that a Healthline is available and they're free to write in at whatever time they may feel.
Thank you, Sabahat. I have the last question for today, and the question is, students may have some issues which they cannot talk about openly. For example, they are changing anatomies and hormonal issues related to these changes. Students don't open up to parents or elders in the family. Is the school equipped to identify and handle these sensitive issues? Seth, do you think you would like to respond to that question?
Yes, ma'am. I think that all of our counselors, especially, are trained specifically to handle those sensitive topics. Again, as we mentioned previously, puberty can be a difficult time to navigate, and children can feel embarrassed or shy to share what's going on both physically and mentally with members of their family, their classroom teachers, or their peers. And so, as counselors, we are all trained explicitly on how to address sensitive subjects, to let children and students know they're not alone. What they're going through and thinking and feeling are normal things that everyone goes through. And then how to overcome any anxiety or stress that those feelings or physical changes are causing. So, yes, I think as a whole, all of us as counselors are more than equipped to handle this.
Thank you, Seth. We are constrained by time, but I will still invite our panel if you'd like to make one last point, before we kind of conclude. Salim, would you like to make one concluding point?
Yes, I would like to say, first of all, this initiative, it's a great thing. Counseling will be available all the time, 24 into 7. And one of the things I would like to share about parenting is one of the most interesting things I heard, I was reading somewhere, is that when we become parents, we assume that we know how to parent a child. You know, maybe we have seen our parents raising us, or we see our colleagues or our society, but I don't know how many of us read and learn about how to parent a child. You know, I have seen parents, when they come to know about how to raise a child, and when they read about it and they feel enlightened. That's what I would like to say, that it is, we always know things when we talk to counselors, when we talk to teachers, professionals, we know about new things. And the best thing is acceptance. we are humans. Our children, they will feel certain emotions, they will go through certain periods, and we have to be ready for that. And the most important thing is awareness. If we give them awareness in advance, so they will be equipped to deal with those emotions, with those feelings, and they will build the necessary resilience to deal effectively with those emotions. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Salim. Shalini, can I request you to say a last few words?
Yes, ma'am. Counseling is a very good process, wherein we get to know about children, what they go through and what they feel about it. When parents don't show much affection or much time for children to hear them, that's where the counselor steps in. For example, it is okay to feel anxious about something. It is okay to feel fear. It's okay to be worried about something, but the response to the situation what matters, how children handle it. So as a parent, as try to understand what they go through is normal as others, and try to accept and try to normalize the situations, be honest with their emotions, and not encouraging their negative thoughts, of course, but trying on to be positive. As I said, modeling the parents is also a very good point. And we need to be confident in the way we speak to children, because they look at us as an example, or as a model or a person. They want to grow up in such a way. So when we face some situations wherein we show our negative tantrums towards children, that's what they learn. So as counselors or any parents or any children, it is okay to feel whatever the emotions that they're going through. It is okay to accept what is happening in our body, not letting go of negative thoughts. I would request all the parents to, to encourage children to face whatever the challenges they go through, and be with them, and stay connected with children. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalini. Sabahat, what about you? Last few lines from you?
Yeah, I'd just like to sum up by saying the thing that we've highlighted again and again, but maybe not addressed directly, is communication. I think the best thing that we, as counselors, parents, teachers, even friends, for anybody, the best thing that we can do is communicate and listen. Just follow this process and just allow each person to express their feelings and just lend a listening ear. I think it would go a great way. Yeah.
Sabahat and Seth, last few words from you.
Yes, ma'am. I just want in closing to highlight the fact that approaching us as counselors using the Healthline service should not be interpreted as a student having some sort of mental issue or psychological problem. That's not what this is. All of us, adults, all of us as counselors can benefit from just talking with someone about what's going on in our lives. It's perfectly normal and natural for a person to receive counseling. It doesn't mean that a person has something wrong with them, that they have a problem, that they should be viewed any differently. So I want both parents and students to feel completely comfortable and normal about coming to us for anything they have a concern about. It doesn't mean that you're admitting defeat. It means that you're taking an active step in making your life better. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. And that is all that we have time for today. Thank you for your participation. We are thrilled to see our initiative is getting such encouraging response from the parent community. Questions not taken during the webinar will be collated and sent to the parent community in the form of a FAQ. We will also soon have a dedicated page on GIIS Healthline on our website. Together, we can help our children deal with their issues effectively and make them mentally and emotionally strong human beings as they prepare to take the world on in future. I would also like to thank our panelists for sharing some very valuable information and tips for our listeners. We would like to inform you all that plans are there to have a webinar series on the Healthline issues, and we will keep you posted on the upcoming topics soon. Kindly note that every response given during the panel discussion cannot be generalized for all students. It's surely not a one fit for all solution. Rather, all students are addressed on a one-to-one basis, and every child is going to be treated as a unique individual. Lastly, I would like to thank the management and the organizers of the webinar for their support. Together, let's strive to keep this initiative going in full force. With this, we come to the end of today's webinar. Have a great day, everyone, and thank you once again to our panelists.